experience in Chicago is that it's an incredibly collaborative artistic community that, as opposed to a backbiting community, that artists seem to really interact well, want to support each other, want other people to succeed, not just themselves. And that's a really strong quality that I think helps us get on the cusp of having a Chicago art. But some of the, so I think we have the community of artists. Some of the things that I see missing is, and you actually mentioned the places, right? That, and Hamza did as well, that with the loss of Randolph Street and various other places for artists to show, I think there's a real lack of exhibition spaces for Chicago artists, and especially these kinds where artists can experiment and try out new things. We actually this summer are doing a show called Artists Run Chicago, which we're collaborating with 25 of the, I know they don't like to be called alternative spaces anymore, are they? Yeah, right. The something bracket, closed bracket spaces. And actually that there again, I think it is kind of the quality that we should really push in Chicago artists, because there's a can-do that you can, you know, just use your living room or use your basement, and if there isn't a space out there to show, find it and make it. I know with 3 Arts turning into a granting organization, I was actually one of the people that argued against that. That in terms of, I mean, what the Chicago's lacking in really interesting spaces. One of the spaces I think we're missing is those kind of big rough spaces, like Mass MoCA type space, or Temporary Contemporary, the Geffen Center, or something like that. There's a bigger and rougher kinds of space. But there's all kinds of spaces I think we're missing for artists to work in, if we're really going to have Chicago art. There again, and I think the curatorial community is really important in this, and I'm actually not good at this. I mean, one of the great things about Don Baum was that he had this amazing eye as he went through the art world of seeing patterns and then putting together, and it was not only the Harry Who. I remember a great show at the Cultural Center, Urgent Messages, where he was one of the first people to really look at the whole text-based art and really explore text-based. But I don't know that we really have, and maybe I'm wrong on the curatorial community that's really looking at the local scene and trying to look at that. I myself am just better at working at individual artists, trying to enable them to do things that they wouldn't be able to enable me to do without it. I'm not strong at looking at those kinds of patterns, but I think more of that is what we need if we're going to get Chicago art. Then there's all the rest of the things. The really strong patron community. Ron Jones, when we did the now defunct park north of the Harold Washington Library together, said, you know, if you have a really good patron community and a really good critical community, you don't have to worry about your artists. They'll take care of themselves. And I think we have a good patron community. Actually, we just had a huge success at the Hyde Park Art Center called Not Just Another Pretty Face, where we got 70 people to become patrons of artists. And with the whole notion of really making the patron community much more democratic, that it isn't a matter of the super rich, that it's a matter of a whole kind of host of people being really interested in understanding contemporary art and wanting, as I think this was Lynne was mentioning, really enjoying the fact that they can actually interact with artists and talk to them and be supportive of their efforts. The thing that we're missing, the most serious thing that we're missing, is the press and maybe Paul, and maybe with the new digital age, because it's obviously getting worse with the Tribune and the Sun-Times collapsing. We just had a roundtable having artists critique our program, and what was universal for all of them was that lack of being able to get the press and critical commentary on their work, which is, and that's a hard one to figure out. And also, I mean, some of you were already picking up. I think there is some elements of what Chicago art is all about kind of emerging. and we'll know when we're there when what Lynne was saying, when major writers, when they're talking about social-based art, they'll obviously refer to Chicago, that, this artist, wherever they are, is such and such as compared to Dan Peterman's work, or Mess Hall, or Temporary Services as a place that really got started. I actually was interested in your thing about craft. We've had a pattern at the Hyde Park Art Center since Sim Park and their skateboard piece, Freebasin. And we now had Juan Chavez's speaker project, and Kelly Kaczynski's Olympus Manger, and Theaster Gates's Play Convergence, which is all, it's very interesting. It's all about incredible craft. All those pieces are incredibly beautiful crafted, like a studio work. At the same time, they don't exist without a community interacting and participating in them. So it's a really kind of interesting hybrid. I don't know whether there's a pattern that's coming out of that. Obviously, that kind of work is done other places too, but maybe, people say, oh, he's as good as those Chicago artists. I think we're on the cusp of having Chicago art, and I think this is, going back to my beginning thing, I think it's the right moment for Chicago, because we are the tough city who doesn't, can get through hard times and work on it. I think we may get there. And now I throw it to you.
I guess it's good that I get to go last. I think you need to look at the bigger picture. And I think the bigger picture means we have to go back at least 100 years. And I think that...
To begin at the beginning, I was born.
Well, speak for yourself. I think Chicago has a history of entrepreneurship, but it's also primarily a blue-collar town. And more than anything else, it cares more about what you are doing than what you have done. I think it puts a stamp on everybody that lives here, and artists merely fall under that category and can't escape it. You are either a Chicago artist or you aren't, and you can then choose to define yourself as such or not. I disagree, I think, with every point that Hamza made.
I wouldn't expect it any other way, Paul. That's why we're holding down opposite ends of this long table.
J.Z. Jacobson wrote that Chicago artists were the first workers in their field of visual art in Chicago who have had the desire and the courage to be creative rather than merely imitative. That was 1932. In the history of art in Chicago, the School of the Art Institute was the first place to graduate artists of color in 1913. A Chicago artist is a person, and same thing with Chicago citizens, or people who look to the East Coast first, then the West Coast, and go, okay, I got it, that's nice, I'm going to do what I'm doing. And I think that's what makes a Chicago artist, is that they have the courage of their convictions, they have a climate and environment around them that enables that. I think what you have is diversity on every front, so that when Hamza talks about a paradigm shift, I think what you have instead is an anomaly. And you have a group of people who were banded together by a vision, and I think that doesn't work here. I think much more is it has to be independent. I think with a lot of evidence, the Tony Tassett, Mitchell Kane, Hirsch Perlman, et cetera folks, all of them are gone or left except for Tony Tassett, who I think has become a Chicago artist, but didn't define a Chicago artist. And if you look at his work now, it has, from his pieces with magnolia trees or Paul Bunyan, Governor State Park, it has a really high work ethic. It's about a work ethic. I think a work ethic, like Lynne's talking about, also touches on craftsmanship, but I don't think it's